You're watching ABC7 News at 7.
What this legislative session will be remembered for is the gun bill. And what you saw come through this process, it's a rarity. It's a compromise.
After 60 days, 200 bills passed. Florida's legislative session is over. Changes to gun control and daylight savings time. What bills didn't get passed? Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Cohn, and welcome to ABC 7 at 7. We'll have more on the legislative session in a moment, but first, our top 7 stories at 7. If you live and work in Sarasota and don't have to commute on I-75, consider yourself lucky, because for the rest of us, the last few weeks have been pretty darn miserable. Not only are there too many drivers for the 6 lanes interstate to handle, the 80-mile stretch running through Manatee and Sarasota counties is experiencing an average of 4 accidents every day. The Florida Highway Patrol says, welcome to the season.
During season, you have to remember that we have so many more visitors down here that I-75 can become a little bit more congested. And when this happens, we have to remember that you have to leave a little bit earlier. You have to plan ahead. And the one thing you want to avoid is losing your patience and becoming one of the aggressive drivers that we as an agency are consistently addressing.
A $192 million construction project starting in 2020 is in the works to rebuild the US 301 and I-75 interchange and add auxiliary lanes. Months after the death of Charles Manson, a Suncoast man, his grandson is being awarded custody of his body. Manson's grandson, Jason Freeman, lives in Bradenton and says he plans to cremate his grandfather's remains and hold a small family ceremony. Manson died 4 months ago at the age of 83 after spending nearly 50 years in prison for the murder spree that left actress Sharon Tate and 6 others dead back in 1969.
I've known who my grandfather is and was all his life. I did have a chance to get to know him for him, which is a different man from what I've always known from the media and from the movies and in the books.
No word yet on who will retain the rights to Manson's estate, which could be worth millions, including both to music rights and songs Manson wrote, as well as his personal memorabilia. Prosecutors will seek the death penalty against Florida school shooting suspect Nicholas Cruz. He is accused of gunning down 17 people at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland last month. Cruz is facing 17 counts of premeditated murder in the first degree and 17 more counts of attempted first-degree murder. Court documents say Cruz confessed to the shooting shortly after his arrest. A public defender said last month the 19-year-old was willing to plead guilty in exchange for his life. And schools across the country are participating in a nationwide walkout tomorrow. Here on the Suncoast, students in both Manatee and Sarasota counties, including elementary, middle, and high schools, will take part in the walkouts organized by students, teachers, and school administrators. The walkout will happen tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for 17 minutes. It's all in honor of the 17 students and staff killed at Stoneman Douglas High School 1 month ago tomorrow. Manatees are dying at an alarming rate in Florida this year, on pace to set a new record for the deadliest year yet. Statistics from Florida Fish and Wildlife show 160 manatees have died in just 3 months. Experts say factors include red tide, water temperatures colder than 68 degrees, and boaters.
The best idea is to maintain vigilance and a good lookout. Just because it says manatee zone or it doesn't say manatee zone doesn't mean you should be looking out for anything that's in the water, including manatees, any kind of sea life, anything like that.
Cattell says to remember, manatees move slowly and they often travel in numbers, so it's important to put your engine in neutral if you do see one. Banning sanctuary cities, revamping gambling laws, and outlawing texting while driving were among the numerous issues that died when the 2018 legislative session ended. Overall, the House and Senate agreed on 195 bills, 4 resolutions, and 1 resolution like memorial, with the backing of House Speaker Richard Corcoran. A proposal to allow law enforcement officers to pull over people for texting while driving cruised through the House but died in the Senate amid privacy concerns and issues such as minority drivers facing increased racial profiling if texting were becoming a primary traffic offense.
the residents of the counties, in every county in the state want. They want this because they see it every day. We have an epidemic on our roadways. All you have to do is go outside. You see them in their car texting and driving.
Now let's head over to ABC7's chief meteorologist Bob Harrigan with the first alert forecast. Bob.
Well, thanks. A beautiful afternoon after a pretty cold start. It was. Temperatures down into the low to mid 40s to start things off today. Temperatures now into the mid to upper 50s, so it's going down pretty quickly as the sun getting ready to set here shortly. Now, as far as overnight lows are concerned, right around the water and to the south into the 50s there in Placida and Rotunda. 43 in Englewood, though, and Northport, you'll be down to 41 to start things off tomorrow morning with a little north wind. It'll feel even colder, and 43 at Lakewood Ranch, 47 in Bradenton, 42 in Parrish, Anna Maria, 51 degrees there. Now, we are anticipating another cold night tomorrow night, too. Thursday morning, lows will be even chillier, I think, in some upper 30s to low 40s well inland. Current temperatures across the state, though, 68 now in Miami. It's 57 here, cooler reading along the west coast of Florida now. And as far as the watches and warnings go, there's a freeze watch for the panhandle of Florida. We're not looking at freezing temperatures here. There could be a little bit of frost to the north of us in North Florida, but not enough to issue any kind of advisories. We do have some high clouds out here in the Gulf of Mexico. You can see some of that activity starting to develop there, and the satellite imagery. That's the subtropical jet stream, which is very active right now, or the jet stream in typical fashion, bringing us the high thin cirrus clouds. Day planner looks like this for Wednesday. Lots of sunshine, but temperatures below average into the mid to upper 50s by noon only, and 64, the highs will be in the mid to upper 60s tomorrow, so well below average.
We should consider ourselves lucky. For the second week in a row, my son's baseball game in the New York area snowed out.
There's another snowstorm, too, that could develop Wednesday of next week. It could be the fourth nor'easter, so we'll see how that goes.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
All right. And still to come, the 2018 Florida legislative session, what passed, what failed, and Parkland.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
Yeah, I have questions.
Prescription drugs aren't as bad as street drugs, right?
Weed's legal, isn't it?
Drinking is worse than smoking weed.
Isn't it? Why
is heroin so addictive?
Molly just makes you feel happy.
I have questions.
Mom?
Dad, did you ever try drugs?
They're going to ask. Be ready. Go to drugfree.org. A message from Partnership for Drug-Free Kids.
Alex Karras Lincoln's 40th anniversary sale. Please join us in welcoming the two newest additions to the Lincoln lineup, our flagship luxury sedan, the 2018 Lincoln Continental, and the totally redesigned 2018 Lincoln Navigator, featuring 450 horsepower, 10-speed transmission, and many best-in-class features. Alex Karras Lincoln, where our mission statement is consistent commitment, every client, every time. Located 2 miles north of the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport on US 41.
Attention, Americans eligible for Medicare. Are you getting all the benefits you're entitled to? Did you know there may be money available to lower your medical prescription costs? Call Health Markets and we'll tell you if you qualify.
Hi, I'm Dr. Martin Jeetsi. It's a new Medicare year. That means more changes and more confusion. The key question is, what can you do now to ensure you get the care you need in the coming year?
Call Health Markets today. You may qualify to save money on prescriptions. We'll help you find plans that may cost less, cover more, and could even lower your prescription costs to increase your savings. We help you find all the benefits you're entitled to, and we do it at no cost.
Make sure you have what you need to get the care that's right for you.
Find out if you qualify to receive extra help with your prescriptions. Call the number on the screen now. Representatives are standing by.
According to a new survey by U.S. News & World Report, 3 of Alabama's top 4 hotels and resorts are part of the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail Resort Collection. The Grand Hotel Marriott Resort in Point Clear, the Battle House Renaissance Mobile Hotel and Spa, and the Renaissance Birmingham Ross Bridge Golf Resort and Spa. Hey, we didn't invent Southern hospitality, we just offer more of it. Visit rtjgolf.com/resorts to find out more.
ABC7, the Suncoast's official Florida lottery station.
The 2018 Florida legislative session won't be remembered for tax cuts, some controversial education bill, or even the failure to make texting while driving a primary offense. It will be remembered for Parkland and the courage of high school students to demand and get change. Dwayne Lindo joins us with more. Dwayne.
Well, Alan, that was most certainly the highlight of this year's session. They finished the session with the approval of an $89 billion state budget, with millions going to Florida schools.
When Florida lawmakers began their 2-month session in January, the priorities were fighting the opioid epidemic and banning sanctuary cities. But that all changed on Valentine's Day, when 17 student and faculty members were killed at a high school in Parkland, Florida.
The Parkland tragedy triggered a crisis.
And out of the 200 bills that passed this year, there was only one bill that stood out due to that crisis.
What this legislative session will be remembered for is the gun bill. And what you saw come through this process, it's a rarity. It's a compromise.
New College of Florida political professor Frank Alcock says it was the tragic shooting making national headlines that forced lawmakers to respond to gun control.
But they did get a major thing done, and and then they got some productive things done. They had more money to work with, so schools got a good amount of money.
Altogether, $400 million in an effort to try to make schools safer. But although that bill went through, according to former state representative Ray Pilon, lawmakers could have done better.
It was quite contentious. You had legislators on both sides of the aisle that voted for and against. People's consciences being looked at very deeply on all of the parts of the bill. I kind of wish it could have been broken out, but the timing of it just didn't allow that.
And according to Pilon, timing is everything.
Unfortunately, when you have something so quickly come forward, that you don't have the full session to vet it and so forth, it's going to be a little more tense in the chamber when those things are debated.
But timing was on point for victims of public school bullying. They can now ask for vouchers to attend private school. Vouchers paid for by sales tax on purchased vehicles. Nursing home facilities are now required to have generators in case of power outages or emergencies. And more than $53 million was approved for the treatment and prevention of opioid abuse. Other high-profile issues that died in the session: eliminating red light cameras, making texting while driving a primary traffic offense, preventing sanctuary cities, and a push to increase punishment on sex traffickers.
And we've made great progress in human trafficking in the last few years, and I was happy to be involved with that, both with our local agencies and with the representatives that were also co-sponsoring and sponsoring it.
And even a gambling package, proposing an amendment on the November ballot that would give voters control of future gambling decisions in the state.
And there are some very powerful forces on both sides of that bill in terms of interests, and there is also some reluctance sometimes on the part of the Republican Party, again, just gambling for a variety of reasons.
And due to those failed bills, Pilon says there may be a push for important legislation in the future.
It often takes 4 years sometimes for these things to get through, so I'm hopeful for next session.
It's worth mentioning one bill that got the boot was a new specialty license plate commemorating the University of Central Florida's undefeated football season.
Oh, well. Thanks a lot, Dwayne. Coming up, the Suncoast's newest state legislator, Margaret Good, a Democrat, Republican Joe Gruters, and all-star political reporter Zach Anderson at the Trapezoid.
This is an important medical announcement. Bard IVC filters have been linked to punctured veins and problems with migration. Anyone who's received a Bard IVC filter must receive medical monitoring and may be entitled to substantial compensation. If you have the Bard Recovery G2 or G2 Express filter, you are in a class of patients who should be compensated for some expenses. Call now for a free assessment of your case and potential money damages. This call is confidential. There's no cost and you may be eligible. Juries have awarded millions of dollars to people who should have been warned about the risks of the Bard IVC filters. Call the IVC Filter Hotline if you or a loved one has received an IVC filter and experienced a vein puncture or required medical monitoring. You must call now.
Call 800-329-3089. 800-329-3089.
We're losing exotic animals on a daily basis, and the ones that we have in captivity are really the ambassadors for their wild counterparts. I'm Clayton Rozier from the Big Cat Habitat and Gulf Coast Sanctuary, housing over 150 exotic animals that needed a great home. And if you love animals, please help them. Do it locally. Support your local no-kill shelters, your local wild animal sanctuaries. Make a difference where you can.
Tomorrow at 5 on ABC7's Good Morning Suncoast.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Webb.
And I'm Ray Collins. Students on the Suncoast and nationwide are taking part in a 17-minute walkout tomorrow.
We're going to tell you how school officials are working with students to coordinate that event to try and persuade lawmakers to change gun laws. That's tomorrow on Good Morning Suncoast. John?
Another cool couple of days under the influence of a big ridge of high pressure. We'll tell you how cool it will be bright and early.
Tomorrow at 5 on ABC7's Good Morning Suncoast. We're here for you.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back. The Florida legislature was on final approach to landing when everything changed. Parkland on Valentine's Day, just as legislators were preparing to wrap up their annual session with a state budget still to be approved, a crazed gunman opened fire on the high school in Parkland, killing 14 students and 3 employees. Surviving students got on buses, went to Tallahassee and demanded action. They got it. But is it enough? Or does it go too far? And joining us for more is the newest member of the Florida legislature, Democrat Margaret Good, who was sworn into office the very day of the shooting. State Representative Joe Gruters and Zach Anderson, who covered the legislative session for the Herald Tribune. Thank you all for joining us. What's really interesting about the gun bill, it is the first piece of gun control legislation, I believe, in 30 years. And the Republican voted for it, and the Democrat voted against it. Margaret, I know it was a very tough decision for you. Why did you vote against it?
Well, you know, this legislative session saw some of the best democracy in action that we have seen in 20 years. I mean, the students that showed up, that marched and rallied at the Capitol was really moving and really meant a lot to my decision. And I think at the end of the day, when you look at the bill, we're arming teachers, we're moving the age up from 18 to 21 for assault weapons, but there's still the big loophole. If you buy from a private seller, if you buy from a gun show, you can still purchase and possess an assault weapon. And so, we're not doing what Floridians actually wanted. 96% of Floridians want universal background checks to make sure that everyone that purchases a gun in Florida has a background check. Yet I brought an amendment to the gun bill that was defeated on party lines.
So, Joe, there is that, but there is also the fact that the NRA is not too happy with this bill and is suing the state of Florida. Are you concerned about your A rating with the NRA?
Yeah, there's no question, and like Margaret said, this was a very touching issue, having these students come up, having the parents. I actually got a chance to meet with the parents, a couple of them, and talk about the tragedy that they experienced, and it's a very tough vote, you know, and I based my decision, and listen, this really ripped both sides, the Republicans and Democrats, apart within the internal party structures, because you're right. As a Republican, all you got to do is go look at my Facebook page and people will say, I'm for gun control, I'm against Second Amendment, which is not the case. I'm a strong believer of the Second Amendment. I would never vote to ban any guns, but what we have to do is we had to start the discussion. These parents came up, all 17 families wanted something done. They wanted this bill to pass, and what we did with this bill, we're providing $400 million for school hardening, school resource officers, officers, mental health counseling. And I think if this bill was in place 5 years ago, we may have prevented this tragedy. And so for me, you can't, no bill is going to be perfect, right? But I would take 95% of a good bill along with 5% that I don't necessarily agree with and move it forward, because we have to do something, and not doing anything would have been devastating for Florida.
Alan, if I may, I agree that this funding, this $400 million that's going to school hardening and public safety and mental health is exactly what we should be doing, and we should have done that 5 years ago. The problem is that the legislature tied this funding to provisions that were untenable, like arming teachers.
Okay. But here's the deal. But you voted against the $400 million, and here's the deal. That's where you have to have compromise. That's what people want from elected officials. 30 years it's taken to have any type of gun control legislation passed, because it's not going to pass in a Republican-dominated legislature. You have to come together and have to accept. Because on the NRA side, it's not good for me.
I just want to say, how can it be compromised when there's been 20 years
So Zach, is this
of
basically
not talking about the issue?
Is this emblematic of really the debate between Republicans and Democrats across party aisle?
Yeah, you're seeing it play out right here at your desk. This was one of the most fascinating debates that I've ever seen in the state legislature, and I've been covering it for almost 10 years now. You really don't see major issues like this where you have bipartisan support and bipartisan opposition. It was an incredibly emotional issue. It was something that was a hard vote for people on both sides. It's rare to see something like this where you have, you know, something that really appeals to people on the left and something on the right paired up in one bill, so that it really made it a difficult decision for a lot of lawmakers.
We have a lot to talk about. We're going to continue with this discussion. We're just getting warmed up, and we'll have much more on the 2018 legislative session right after we check the first alert weather. Stay with us.
Credit card debt can ruin your life. If you owe $10,000 and minimum payments are siphoning away your paycheck each month, you can get debt-free in less time than you think.
I've paid $800 a month for the past 3 years and haven't changed the balance on my credit card.
Get Debt-Free Now has a program to reduce your debt, stop the harassing phone calls, avoid financial ruin, and settle for less than you owe.
I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
You're pre-approved for our special hardship program if you owe $10,000 or more. Upon payment of your new lower balance, your debt will finally shrink until you are debt-free.
My family no longer has 30 years of payments ahead of us at 20% interest.
There's no fees until you see results. So call now, make one monthly program payment, and free up your cash. Resolve your debt.
Call 800-685-6422, 800-685-6422.
Every child follows a path in life. For many, that path will lead them to a door that gives them a place to grow, to learn, to belong, a place to forge their future. Because while many doors open, these doors transform. They did for us. Support your local Boys and Girls Clubs. Great futures start here.
In life after the military, it's our duty as veterans to have each other's back. I'm retired Colonel Greg Gatson, and it's my mission to help you get the benefits and services you've earned. If you need to file a VA claim, remember these important steps. Submit an online claim through ebenefits.va.gov. Work with an accredited Veterans Service Organization, or VSO. And if you need to attend a VA claim exam, please go. Visit this website to learn what to expect.
Our nation's servicemen and women show great courage and leadership, both on and off the battlefield. When they transition to civilian life, they can apply the skills and values they learned in the military to the workplace. That's why the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes is urging employers everywhere to be smart, bet on a vet. Hiring a veteran is also a great way to show your appreciation for them. To learn more, call 1-888-44-SALUTE.
Now your ABC7 First Alert weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan.
Well, a beautiful afternoon after a very cold start this morning. Temperatures down into the low to mid 40s. We're looking for more of the same tomorrow, and it looks as though this north wind will stay pretty consistent right through the next several days, eventually warming up by Friday afternoon. Look at this nor'easter continuing to rage over Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Massachusetts tonight. They could see an additional foot of snow in some places after getting the heavy weather yesterday and today, and continuing to linger on into Wednesday, it looks like. Snowstorm forecast calling for projection up to a foot, maybe even a little bit more than that, 18 inches there in upstate portions of Maine and also into Vermont. Lesser amounts as you travel southward, but still could see up to 4 to 6 inches into places like Buffalo as well as into New York City. Well, the European model forecast suggesting another storm developing. That's right, it could be the fourth in a row in less than 2 weeks next Wednesday, and it looks as though we'll see that get very close to the coastline. So there's still a lot of question marks for that one, but it looks as though they will continue to see the potential, at least, for more snow next week. Current conditions here, 59 degrees, and the dew point low, 42. That means our lows tonight will be well below seasonal averages. Our high temperature today, only 64. Normally we get to 76, so it's usually pretty warm. 44 was the morning low. We'll be close to that number tomorrow, and I think even cooler than that on Thursday morning. Well, there goes the one nor'easter, as I said, heading off to the northeast. We'll look for some high clouds occasionally streaming by with the subtropical jet stream, but all in all, lots of sunshine around. Should be a fairly pleasant couple of days with the sunshine, but it will be on the cooler side. As I alluded to, temperatures only into the mid-60s tomorrow with lots of sunshine around after 40s to start things off. Temperatures are not extreme over the northeast, although cool. 29 in Chicago, Boston now at 30 degrees. The problem with that is that when the snow falls, it's very heavy snow, and it can cause a lot of problems with the limbs and some of the tree limbs kind of snapping due to the heavy weight of the snow, and then downing power lines. 41 for a high tomorrow in Boston, so a lot of that snow will start to melt. For boaters, winds will be out of the north at 15 knots. Seas will be running 2 to 3 feet, and a moderate chop on the bays and inland waters tomorrow, so a little less action out there in the waters, but still strong. The Gulf water temperature 69 degrees, and the beaches will see a high right around 68 degrees. The forecast for tonight, mostly fair, breezy and cool. 46 for most areas to start things off. We'll have north winds 5 to 10. Mostly sunny, still cool tomorrow. High temperatures mid to upper 60s, and north winds 10 to 15 will make it feel even cooler. Than the 7-day forecast shapes up to be pretty chilly right through Friday morning at 46, but we warm up to the low 70s. It should be a very pleasant Friday afternoon. St. Patrick's Day looks to be really nice. Lots of sunshine right through the weekend with high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s. Alan will be right back after this. Stick around.
Rugs as Art. You know the name. You know the building. But do you know what's inside? Yes, Rugs as Art is Florida's #1 area rug superstore. But there is so much more. Amazing furniture, accessories, and art. All this and more. Come see for yourself. You'll love our personal touch and be pleasantly surprised by our affordable prices. Rugs as Art and more. There is so much more to explore.
I heard about the Dotoli Cancer Center through friends of mine who had been treated here and were very pleased with the treatment.
If there is prostate cancer, we at the Dotoli Cancer Center will find it using 3D color flow Doppler ultrasound.
And that helped precisely identify where my cancer was and some additional cancers that were not found during the biopsy. I would recommend the Dotoli Cancer Center. As a group of human beings, they are unbelievably great.
Invest in Kids is a $7.5 million project to build a new Boys and Girls Club in South Manatee County. I'm Caleb Grimes, and I was a club kid. It's where I learned important life lessons, leadership, integrity, responsibility, and baseball. Thousands of kids attend the Boys and Girls Clubs, and after years of use, their club is slowly falling apart. Help us invest in kids. Make your donation today.
Thank you!
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
Once you get atrial fibrillation, you need to have a very close relationship with your primary doctor. Prevention is the whole ball game here, because once you have a stroke, you can't undo it. A year without stroke, it's a year that you can enjoy doing the things that you've worked all your life to finally get to do. You took care of yourself. You did what is necessary for you to be around one more year. And then next year, we'll celebrate one more year without a stroke.
Welcome back. We're talking about the end of the 2018 Florida legislative session, and joining us for more is the newest member of the Florida legislature, Democrat Margaret Good, State Representative Joe Gruters, and Zach Anderson, who covered the legislative session for the Herald Tribune. Let's continue on with the gun issue for a little bit, because what was interesting when you had the teenagers come up from Parkland and their parents, Margaret, not all of them were in favor of banning assault weapons or necessarily raising the age, because they come from the other political perspective on that. So this was not a gimme in terms of taking what the folks from Parkland were hoping for into consideration.
Well, and I thought seriously and listened closely to what the students and the parents from Parkland said, but I also held a town hall in Sarasota the Saturday after, the 2 Saturdays after the shooting, and heard from my constituents about what they wanted. And then I also looked at the research and the data, and the majority of Floridians want a ban on assault weapons. They want universal background checks. They want to not just make sure that their students in their schools are safe, but that people are safe when they go to the mall, when they go to the movie theater, when they go to church, when they go to concerts. And so when I was thinking about the legislation, I was thinking about all Floridians and what people really wanted to see in gun legislation.
Joe, I know you're in enough trouble with the NRA right now, but what about the Florida polls that show close to 70% of Floridians want assault weapons banned?
Well, I'll say this bill, I'll go back to the bill real quick. You can't go from 0 to 100 with 1 second. You basically have to slow, and what this bill did is this is the first starting block, which hopefully what this bill also did was create a commission to look at all the issues that impacted this, and hopefully a year from now, maybe we could take it even further on all mental health, school funding, but across the board. I'm a father of a public school student, and I have 2 on the way. And for me, this vote was about making sure that all children in Sarasota County schools are safe. And that's probably the biggest thing for everybody. Listen, you want to be able to say, as a parent, I want to be able to drop my kid off and know that they're going to be safe.
Have you talked to Marion Hammer, the lobbyist for the NRA, since the vote?
I have communicated by email.
What has she said to you?
It was a video of the governor of Kentucky talking about the Second Amendment in this issue.
Zach, where are we right now? It's a very interesting situation because Marion Hammer has basically been, there are so many different stories about this, including an incredible piece in the New Yorker about how she rules that legislature with an iron fist, and Republicans who dare cross her pay a steep price.
Yeah, and a big question is how this is going to play out on the campaign trail. If Republicans who voted for this bill find that the NRA is after them and that swings some primaries, you could see people second guessing in the future whether they support any type of gun control going forward. I think the NRA is going to be involved in this election, especially in Republican primaries, going after people who they think were not loyal to them on this issue, and we'll see how much clout they have in some of these elections.
Yeah, on big issues, just real quick, on big issues, we should root for compromise. We should root for moving the needle. We're not always going to get everything we want with every bill, but what we have to do is we have to start the process and we have to start moving the ball down the court.
Let me say that 20 years and nary one gun reform, gun control measure had been heard, not even debated in committees. And here we are with, after Las Vegas, after Pulse, after Parkland, finally the students come up, have their voices heard, and we do move the needle. But it was not far enough. And this, what people are calling compromise legislation, ends up putting more guns in more people's hands and ends up making our schools less safe because there are more guns in our schools.
No, that's wrong. The schools will be much safer. You voted against $400 million of school resource officers, school hardening, and making sure that we have the mental health the assets on the ground to deal with it. And basically we're taking the guns away from the crazy people. And that's what the main goal is with the Baker Act and everything else. Listen, this is yes, no bills have been passed in 20 years, but this was a compromise bill because you guys got people like me who are 100% behind the Second Amendment to say, yes, I am willing to give up some of these items for the greater good to make sure our children are safe. I think a no vote was the wrong way to go. And I think and I think what this bill is going to do for the future, it's going to save lives.
Margaret?
I just want to note that I voted for the $400 million of school hardening, of mental health funding when I voted for the budget. I believe in that.
All right, let's get to a couple of other things. And one issue is the USF consolidation. That USF Sarasota Manatee and USF St. Pete are going to be consolidated into USF Tampa. Zach, it's a really controversial thing because legislators down here work so hard to get those campuses independent and have their own identity. I know that a lot of the members of the faculty have been really concerned what that means to them. Why did this happen?
It's kind of a complicated issue, and it's not an issue that I'm sure many people from the public really understand or necessarily care about all that much, but it is something that could have significant consequences for that campus and for the community going forward. You know, back 17 years ago, John McKay, who was a former senator from Bradenton and became Senate president, he looked at that campus and he said, I think this could be a lot better than what it is right now. I don't think the state is investing in it. And there were some lawmakers up in St. Petersburg who said the same thing about the USF campus in St. Petersburg. And there was an effort to kind of divorce them from the USF system a little bit and get them some independence so that they would be able to grow and make decisions independent of the main campus, which people thought was stifling growth and, you know, kind of being able to do some new and innovative things on those campuses. And now we get to a point where USF Tampa never really liked that move. They had kind of a power play this session to reconsolidate them under one wing of the main campus.
So, Joe, do you have any concerns? Those concerns from 17 years ago could reemerge if basically USF Sarasota Manatee becomes almost a stepchild to the main campus in Tampa?
You know, as the only alumni of the USF Sarasota Manatee campus in the legislature, I will say that obviously I'm very concerned long-term with its future success. It did a lot for me when I was going back to school. But what I will tell you is with higher education has changed over the last 10 years, certainly over the last 17 years. We now have preeminent universities here in Florida. USF will probably become a preeminent university here in Florida over the next probably year or two. And basically Sarasota being a part of that, I think we'll be able to see more funding. It will have more opportunities for students, and I think it will be good for I don't think we'll lose anything that we have at the local campus. I'm going to continue to go up there and do everything I can to fight for our local community school, and only time will tell. If it doesn't work, then in a couple years, when Margaret and I have the power, we could flip it back.
Morgan, let me get your take on that, because as I said, I talked to a lot of faculty members there who are concerned what it means for tenure in terms of the money and resources that they have now.
Yeah, so this was an issue that came up right before the legislative session and really didn't have an opportunity to be vetted. And I know that there were a lot of stakeholders on all sides that would have liked the opportunity to sit down before a decision was made and talk about what it would look like, how it would go. And I really wish that would have happened. I'm hopeful moving forward that the three universities, USF and the two branch campuses, will be able to work together. And I believe the legislation has some of those components in place to make sure that there's good processes in place. But ultimately, I share a lot of those concerns and would have liked to have seen a study before a decision was made.
Okay, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment.
Hi, I'm Janelle Hale, founder and CEO of the National Breast Cancer Foundation. No one should face breast cancer alone. When I was diagnosed 36 years ago, there was no internet, and I had to make a decision with little information. Early detection saved my life. It could save yours too. To learn what every woman needs to know about breast cancer, visit nbcf.org/hope.
When it comes to drinking, what do you think moderation is? The U.S. Dietary Guidelines define moderation as up to 1 drink a day for women and up to 2 drinks a day for men. So what's a drink? The guidelines say a drink equals 12 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine, or a cocktail with 1.5 ounces of distilled spirits. Each contains the same amount of alcohol. Like to learn more? Visit drinkinmoderation.org.
Ever since I can remember, I've been intrigued by industrial design and the optimization.
Wait, that's passion? Ever since I can remember, my passion has been industrial design. We need 3D printers for Miss Adams' engineering program so that we are ready to solve 21st century challenges.
Impressive. Think It Up is a new initiative to support student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classroom today? Think It Up.
My name is Haley. I have Fragile X syndrome. I work with Chartwells at Einstein's at FAU. I like being up front and interacting with students. The students are very nice and very hungry. Having a job is a big ticket for independence.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
Enjoy some of the best Suncoast restaurants on me. Just go to mysuncoast.com/dining, sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, and you can win a $50 gift card to a restaurant in our area. We'll pick a winner each week, so go on our website and sign up now.
And our guests join us right now for final thoughts. Let's try to get two subjects in 4 minutes, I'm sorry. The first one would be texting while driving. For the life of me, we all hate it. Why was it impossible this time around to do something about it, Joe?
Well, I was a co-sponsor of this legislation. I think it's important, but I think at the end of the day, in 5 years, we may not have been talking about texting and driving. If you've gotten to any new car, basically your phone hooks up, it will read your text for you, and I think it's going to be a non-issue in a couple years, but I think it's important to prevent distracted drivers from driving. There's too many accidents, and I think it's a great bill.
And the politics of it, Margaret, I understand in the Senate, the problem was liberal Democrats and libertarian Republicans who don't want to tell drivers what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would support the legislation, but I think there was some concern, especially from members of the Black Caucus, that were worried about discrimination being pulled over because this would make texting while driving a primary offense. It's already a secondary offense, so you can get in trouble for texting while driving already. But I think there was some concern about that being the reason to getting pulled over.
Was it possible in the Senate to do something about that?
If you talk to members of the public, they think this is a no-brainer. They can't believe that texting while driving isn't already banned. So I think that it's going to happen eventually. It was a big milestone that it passed the House to make it a primary offense instead of a secondary offense. It'll probably pass the Senate eventually.
Okay, opioid. It limits the number of days of medication that a doctor can prescribe. We recently did a whole hour on this here, and I'm wondering how it plays out, because you have physicians, pain management clinics around here who deal with a lot of patients and a lot of pain. And is this something that is really going to, does it go too far? Does it do enough, Joe?
I think most of the doctors we talked to said it is 3 days, but you can get up to 7 days under certain circumstances. I will tell you that we've hit this issue from all different sides, and who really deserves most of the credit across the state is Jim Boyd. I mean, he's the state representative of Manatee, where we're being hit hardest, and he has really tackled this issue and really gone after it, and we've really attacked it on so many different levels that I do think we're going to start seeing a major decrease in reduction in deaths and cells and everything else over the coming years.
All right, Margaret, let me get you on one other thing. The budget in general, the tax holidays, is that enough? Do you like what you see there?
In general, I thought there were a lot of good things in the budget. There's $101 million for Florida Forever, which is a major win for environmental preservation, although pursuant to the constitutional amendment, it should be much more. There was decent tax holidays for hurricane preparedness, for back to school. And I think the main chunk of the budget is that I disagree with would be Hope Scholarships, voucher programs, and giving money to for-profit charter schools.
And Zach, it seems that those things were crammed in at the last minute because of the gun debate. There was just not a lot of debate about those Hope Scholarships.
Yeah, there was a lot of big issues this session that really got overshadowed by the gun debate, and probably rightly so. This was a big, important issue, and the legislature felt compelled to tackle it, but there were some important important things, the continuing to expand the school choice by giving vouchers to go to private schools. That's controversial in some circles. There was other big issues like we talked about, the opioids and things like that. So there was plenty of stuff that happened this session.
All right, we'll have to leave it there, but I believe you're all going to find the following interesting. Before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show on Republican women voting Democrat. In the House 72 special election here in Sarasota, many Republican women voted for the Democrat who just happens to be Margaret Good, who is sitting here right now. There were Republican women voting Democrat in Miami in another special election, and in the U.S. Senate race in Alabama, where Democrat Doug Jones earned the votes of a lot of Republican women when he defeated Republican Roy Moore. We went to Facebook and asked if this was a result of President Trump. And here is what some of you have to say. Joanne says, of course, it's because of Trump, and we're coming in 2018 and 2020. But Michelle says, not at all. Some of us love the job Trump is doing. Hashtag Trump 2020. And then there's Ann, who says, it's called making up your mind independently of party affiliation. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And for the latest on local breaking news, don't forget to download the updated version of our app. If your current app doesn't work, it's expired, just go to the App Store and re-download it by searching for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. The newest member of the Florida Legislature, Democrat Margaret Good, State Representative Joe Gruters, and Zach Anderson, who covered the legislative session for the Herald Tribune. When we return, we'll have our consumer watchdog Jerry Zivick here, plus another one bites the dust. President Trump fires his Secretary of State, and you won't believe how Rex Tillerson found out.
My name is Stephen Campagna. We're Ben Gates and Dramus, and here is your law tip of the week. If you've been injured or arrested, I know this feels like the end of the road, but really it's the beginning of a long, potentially stressful process. So give us a call, let us give you some peace of mind.
I owed the IRS $10,000.
I owed the IRS $20,000.
The IRS garnished my wages.
They put a lien on my house.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency in the world. They do not give up until you pay.
I couldn't sleep. We were being audited. I called Tax Solutions Now, and a great big weight was lifted off my shoulders.
I called Tax Solutions Now, and they got the IRS off my back.
Tax Solutions Now had my wage garnishment lifted in 48 hours.
Tax Solutions Now can get you help. Our agents know the rules, can stop the pain, and get you the best deal.
We saved our home and overcame the most powerful collection agency in the world.
We connect you with a team of former IRS agents and tax professionals who get the IRS off your back. Time is running out. Call Tax Solutions now.
Call 1-800-565-7740. That's 1-800-565-7740.
You now have the power to prioritize your Facebook feed and get local news and information from the team you trust. Go to the ABC7 Sarasota page on Facebook. Give us a like, then click following and choose See First. That's it. Customize even more by choosing notifications. Choose breaking news, posts, live videos, anything you want to see in real time. Take control of your newsfeed and stay connected to what's happening in your community with ABC7 on Facebook.
My first job was in sports, and I was so thrilled just to be working in this business. I simply love covering this area. It has been my home for more than 40 years, and now it's wonderful that I can raise my family here as well. I'm Scott Dennis, and I'm here for you.
Your primetime headlines are coming up in a moment, but first, did you know that cyber theft costs the economy over $575 billion a year? But there are steps you can take to protect your personal possessions, and here to tell us about it is ABC7's consumer watchdog, Jerry Zivick. You know, a lot of folks around here, Jerry, still rely on lock boxes in the bank, but that doesn't protect everything.
No, it doesn't. I'm one of those people that still rely upon safe deposit boxes. There are a lot of misconceptions about these boxes. They're in a bank, you think they're safe, and you think they're insured because when we put our money in a bank, it's insured up to $250,000. However, the FDIC guarantees does not go over to our safe deposit boxes.
So what do you do?
Well, one of the things you can do to protect your items in a safe deposit box is you can actually get a rider on your home insurance policy that will cover the value of the items in your safe deposit box. Also, you should take an inventory of everything in your safe deposit box and take a picture of the things you're putting in there.
How often does this really become a problem?
A hurricane can just destroy a safe deposit box, or if there's a fire in the bank and the sprinkler system goes off, it can get waterlogged. That's actually another tip. You should always try and get a box that's higher up.
Right, and in terms of, a lot of people also put a lot of things in terms of cyberspace and security, but we all don't always know how to make them as secure as possible.
Well, one of the things we can also always do is we have to look out at our mailboxes too. I think mailboxes are overlooked a lot of times. There's a lot of interesting information in our mailbox that a thief can take.
Including 401ks and W-2s and so forth.
Well, actually, when we talk about the 401ks and our deposits, what we should do is actually we should spread the risk around. We should have more than one bank too, because if a hacker gets into one bank, you don't want to make it one-stop shopping. You want to make them go to different banks to look for your money.
But you're also talking about your physical mailbox, and we've had, in fact, we had this terrible situation a couple of years ago where people were, getting tax returns stolen right out of their mailboxes.
You should go to your mailbox every day. You should always have a lockbox. In fact, it's not a bad idea to actually get a P.O. box too, because then it never really leaves the post office.
How many people are actually doing that and relying less on their physical mailbox at home?
Well, not enough. And there really aren't enough P.O. boxes to cover people if they wanted to. You can go to most post offices and there's a waiting list. You can go to one of the local stores like a UPS store or a FedEx store that also have boxes. However, if they go out of business, you can't get your box. It's a real nightmare.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jerry. Jerry Zivic joins us every other Tuesday for your benefit segment. When we return, we'll have primetime headlines. Stay with us.
Planning a Carnival Fantasy Cruise out of Mobile? Then check out the park and cruise packages at the luxurious Battle House and Renaissance Riverview Plaza hotels. Stay at the Battle House for $169 per night, or the Riverview Plaza for just $149 per night, and leave your car for the duration of your cruise. Includes transportation to and from the cruise terminal. If you're cruising out of Mobile, come stay with us. Call 1-800-MARRIOTT or visit Marriott.com now.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Good kisses. Good kisses. You heard how loud
I heard. It wasn't you. Yeah. It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
I am the resident district manager on the FAU campus for Chartwell. Whenever I see Haley, I do not see a person with a disability. I see a person with extraordinary abilities. Haley is always smiling. She's always on time. She gives fantastic customer service and is always focused on any job that she's given.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
A promise was made, a promise that hit the beaches of Normandy, a vow that captured Iwo Jima, a contract that weathered Tet, a pledge that stormed the desert in Iraq, an IOU that braved IEDs in Kandahar. A promise was made to America's veterans. DAV fights to keep that promise, so all veterans and their families get the benefits and support they earned. For help, visit DAV.org.
My name is Luke Perry, and I am 1 million strong. I'm in the fight against colorectal cancer because I believe we can win it. Colon and rectal cancers are the second leading cause of cancer deaths among men and women in the U.S. Colon cancer is preventable. Know the risk factors and make sure to get screened. There are simple, take-home options available. Take control of your health. Screening for colon cancer isn't embarrassing. It can be life-saving. To find out more about your options, visit fightcrc.org.
Checking primetime headlines. No, the White House is not in chaos. This morning, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson learned he was being fired by President Trump on Twitter. ABC's Karen Travers has more at the White House.
Rex Tillerson says that at the end of the day, he'll delegate all responsibility at the State Department to his deputy, but he'll stay on as Secretary of State until the end of the month to ensure a transition that is smooth and orderly. But his tenure and firing have been anything but. Rex Tillerson in what may be one of his final public appearances as Secretary of State.
Much remains to be done to achieve our mission.
President Trump today firing Tillerson after months of tension and announcing he'll nominate CIA Director Mike Pompeo to replace him. This morning, the president said it came down to chemistry.
I actually got along well with Rex, but really it was a different mindset. It was a different thinking.
But the president and Pompeo?
We're always on the same wavelength.
This diplomatic shakeup has been brewing for months. A plan to push Tillerson out and bring Pompeo in was put in motion last fall after the report that Tillerson called the president a moron, which he didn't exactly deny.
I'm not going to deal with petty stuff like that.
But there were also major differences on key policies: the Iran nuclear deal, North Korea, climate and trade. Tillerson airing his views publicly, something that is said to have irked the president. And there's a conflicting narrative about how Tillerson was fired. Two White House officials tell ABC News Chief of Staff John Kelly informed Tillerson on Friday that he was being asked to step down. But a senior State Department official close to the secretary says Tillerson only became certain he was being fired when he saw this tweet from the president this morning.
I received a call today from the President of the United States at a little after noontime.
That phone call between Secretary Tillerson and President Trump came more than 3 hours after President Trump announced the news. Nearly 14 months after taking office, the president said today he's getting very close to having the cabinet that he wants. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Hope you're enjoying that tax cut, because the federal government went $215 billion deeper into deficit last month. The Treasury Department reports it's the largest monthly deficit in 6 years. Federal spending went up by $7 billion compared to February of last year, and tax revenue dropped by $16 billion. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the revenue drop was caused by higher tax refunds and other tax changes that kicked in this year. The Treasury now projects a deficit of almost $833 billion for this fiscal year. A massive and powerful display in Washington Tuesday calling for an end to gun violence. It was a memorial consisting of 7,000 pairs of shoes, one for every child killed by guns since 2012 Sandy Hook school massacre. The display was laid out on the southeast lawn of the Capitol. It also comes ahead of the March for Our Lives later this month, and where activists will call on lawmakers to take action on combating gun violence. The polls are closing in just a few minutes in western Pennsylvania, where a special congressional election is being held for the 18th Congressional District. Democrat Connor Lamb and Republican State Representative Rick Saccone are vying for the congressional seat. On paper, the race should be a GOP cakewalk. Donald Trump won the district by more than 20 points, but Democrats see a chance for an upset in Trump country. They hope that bodes well in the upcoming midterms. We'll have the results for you coming up tonight at 11. And that's all the time we have for this evening. I'm Alan Cohen. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.